episode 3 of the Digital Fate Ego 2003.5 podcast. It's been a while.
Yeah, we've missed like a week, but because we're only doing it once every 2 weeks, it's been like a month. So
Yeah.
uh,
But we're here now.
whatever, shit gets in the way.
Yeah.
But,
So yeah. We watched Happy Together by Wong Kar-wai and
Underworld by Len Wiseman.
Wiseman.
Yeah.
I think we should get straight into it.
Yeah.
Underworld. Holy Christ.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
My thinking for this, I was like, I haven't seen this in ages. Let's see how it goes. I just want to see this film again.
Yeah.
I want to know what it was like. It seems like something that I would enjoy.
Yeah. Same here.
Because I think what's gonna end up happening here, I'm gonna try and not do it because this is not the film that we picked.
Yes.
But we're probably gonna end up talking about like Blade and shit.
Yeah.
And like
they're very similar films, but one of them is really good, one of them is really shit.
Fucking dog water.
And you can probably assume which is the good one.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's, you know what, Connor, you start.
Okay.
We'll start like we always do because we're kind of jumping the gun a bit.
So, Underworld.
Explain what this film is.
Yeah. So Underworld is the basic plot is there's a dark criminal underworld, with vampires on one side and werewolves on the other side, and they're basically gangs that hate each other and want to kill each other.
Yeah.
But it's also like they're like two opposing families. Like, they're not like gangs as in like gangsters. They're still like stereotypical vampires.
Yeah,
And,
they're more like
yeah.
aristocrats, but
Yeah.
like the vampires are. With the werewolves, we'll get into it with the werewolves.
They're just...
They call them lichens, by the way, which is just the same thing.
Yeah.
But like, where they go with the plot of this film and some of the underlying politics.
Yeah.
if we're gonna call
It gets very messy.
Yeah, I don't think this film really knows what it wanted to be, but
so we follow the main character, whose name is Celine. She is a vampire, and she sees some werewolves like following a guy around, so she's like, oh, I'm gonna investigate this and stop them from following this guy. And then they get into a shootout.
Yeah, the film starts with, as these kinds of films usually start off with, an action scene. We start in the middle of things. There's an action scene right off the bat. It's kind of mysterious. We don't really know who anybody is yet, but...
And you never really do.
Yeah. We're given a voiceover.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna say this now.
Yeah.
So, we initially tried to watch this on Internet Archive.
Yeah.
Right? The video quality was okay.
It was fine. It was exactly what you'd expect.
But when it got to someone speaking, it was very bassy, very muffled.
Yeah, it sounded like she was in a watery cave.
In the blink of an eye. Lucian, the most feared and ruthless leader ever to rule the Lycan clan, had finally been killed.
Yeah. So we were like, oh shit, okay, we can't watch this. because also there was no subtitles.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, let's find somewhere else to watch it. So then we look on a YouTube upload. Someone's uploaded the movie on YouTube, but the video quality is worse, and somehow the audio is worse.
It's completely bit crushed. It's not.
So it's really bassy. It's really echoey, and it's bit crushed. So it's fucking terrible. You cannot watch it there. And we ended up settling for a Daily Motion upload. And I think even if we had bought this on DVD or Blu-ray or watched it on a streaming service, I think that's just the movie.
Yeah, it definitely has some issues.
The audio mixing is not good, and also the soundtrack for this film, the music, if you want to call it that, is basically just a constant, and I mean for the whole film, a constant low frequency humming in the background.
Yeah, it's all drones, and it's meant to be atmospheric, and I'm sure if you're in the cinema or whatever, I'm sure having these kind of weird drones around you could have been cool. When you're watching it on a TV, also just with the way it's mixed, everything is just muffled.
Yeah.
It's like, too loud. Too loud.
There was pieces of dialogue that got completely lost in the droning in the background, or sound effects that just got completely drowned out by it.
Yeah.
It was a horrible experience. We had to use like auto-generated subtitles,
which were surprisingly good.
To an extent.
Like, there were a few things that messed up. One we'll get to.
Yeah.
A very unfortunate mess up. But they mostly got everything right.
Except for at one point where the subtitles got stuck on someone saying... It was something like, "Who is that woman?" And then it would say, "Who is that man?" And then it would say, "Who is that woman?" And it just got stuck for a good 5 minutes, swapping between the two.
Yeah, though I think that's probably a Daily Motion issue.
Yeah, I would assume so.
But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah,
I thought we had a DVD for some reason, but I think I just made
thought so
that
too.
up.
But I guess not. We have movies similar to
I might have just been looking at Resident Evil.
Yeah.
And actually, speaking of which, I know I just said we're probably going to bring up Blade. Probably going to bring up Resident Evil as well.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I feel like those are the two things that this movie is kind of trying to be.
Yeah, but both of those, specifically, I'm going to say Resident Evil Apocalypse, the second one. It is definitely more like that than the first Resident Evil movie, and we're talking about the live action ones here, not the CGI ones. Even Resident Evil Apocalypse, which is not an amazing movie, is still leagues above this.
It's... yeah.
I don't think I even rated this on Letterboxd because I was that just I didn't even want to look at it once the movie had finished. I was just like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I did, but I don't know. I won't spoil what... If you follow me on Letterboxd, which basically if you're friends with me, but I won't spoil it anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, the plot, I really don't think we need to go in with the minor details on this plot, because in the grand scheme of things, it is an action scene at the start, a lot of talking about shit that doesn't make sense, and then there's an action scene at the end. And that is basically the movie.
Yeah, I think it is worth going roughly scene by scene.
Yeah.
Because there's kind of that little going on, thematically or plot-wise.
Yeah.
To really break it down by theme. So, I don't know, I guess that's how we'll do it.
Yeah.
But, it's not going to be...
Yeah, so... Basically, the setup at the start of the movie is the vampires and the werewolves, they hate each other, they're trying to kill each other, they're at war, and for some reason, there's this guy who I thought looked like Homelander from The Boys. I don't know.
Yeah, once you said it, I was like, oh, I do see that.
Yeah.
But it's not him.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's not him.
Yeah.
So, both... Well, no. The werewolves are trying to capture this guy, and the vampires don't know why. So the vampires... No, not the vampires. Specifically Celine is trying to figure it out. And all I'm saying is, I said this from the start, they should have just killed him, and there would have been no problems.
Yeah.
Like, it's as simple as that. It's like, the werewolves want him, so we should kill him, so they don't have him.
Basically, yeah.
And it doesn't evolve beyond that point.
Not really. Like, there's a romance, but it's
here's the
bad.
thing. So, the romance is really forced in the way of like most stupid action movies where there's a male and female character and obviously there's gonna be a romance.
Yeah.
Because that's just how it goes with shitty like action movies and stuff. And at first, I was like, oh, why the fuck are they doing this? This is so pointless. Like, there's no reason to put this in the fucking movie.
Yeah.
Until, like, while midway through the film, I started looking through Wikipedia, because I was initially trying to figure out if it was based on a comic book or something prior to this film.
Because there's that many lore dumps that I was like, this has to be based off something.
Because it kind of just starts and they never fully explain the world or the characters. So it seems like, oh, it's based on a comic. You're supposed to just know from reading comic. No, they made it into comic books after the film. If I'm correct on this, they made comics based on it afterwards, but it was never based on an original comic or graphic novel or whatever. So we're gonna just say this right at the start. So I was looking on Wikipedia, and I was looking through the writers, anything, just kind of getting an idea, and just like description about the movie. And the guy who had the original idea for this movie, who is in the film as a kind of side character who just shows up sometimes, and he has a really, really deep voice.
Yeah, like it sounds altered. It's not.
It's apparently not.
Apparently it isn't.
So he had an idea for a movie or a comic book or something where it's vampires, it's Romeo and Juliet, but it's vampires and werewolves. And the main symbolism of the whole thing is that it's like talking about interracial dating.
Yeah.
So, on paper, we have like The Matrix with vampires and werewolves, and it's actually about something deeper than just a stupid action movie.
Yeah.
That seems really fucking cool. I want to see that movie.
Yeah, like before we even go into it, like the premise is maybe the easiest slam dunk I think I've ever come across it. Like
you don't need to think about
or at least in terms of films that don't deliver on it. It's Matrix like action.
Yeah.
Kind of like Blade, where it's main vampire character who fights whatever.
Because even Blade has that kind of like organization of vampires, which is very similar to the stuff in this.
Yeah,
and it does it so much better.
And it also has like a lot of racial undertones in it, which somehow are also way better done in this movie.
Because I think the thing is with saying that Celine, the main character, and this other guy represent an interracial couple. Number one, the problem is they're both white.
Yeah.
And even if it's like a bit too on the nose to just put that in the movie, like it's a black and a white person dating each other, I think it's still important to do that because it's like, it kind of puts the idea in your head, it frames it in that way. Yeah. Whereas with this, it's just like, oh, they're vampire, one of them's a vampire, one of them's a werewolf, and they're dating each other. But it's never actually an issue in the film. The main plot is not the vampires and werewolves both hate them because they're dating each other. It's just something that's happening all the while. It has no actual effect on the plot.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's like it's Matrix action,
Yeah.
kind of Blade-like with the vampire stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of Resident Evil-y with the female main character. It's got Romeo and Juliet in there.
Yeah.
It's like, this should be a high romantic gothic action thing.
Yeah.
Like Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
With more Matrix stuff and no swords and more guns and that.
Yeah.
And just that kind of thing. This would have been a fucking great video game.
I think they did make a game based off it, but I'm pretty sure it's terrible. I'll have to look into
I'm
it.
sure it is. I think what the main takeaway that I got from this film is I think I should probably just play Blood Rain.
Yeah.
Because I think...
Or watch the Blood Rain movie. Ooh.
Uh,
That one is abysmal.
Yeah, I think we should just start... We've been talking enough about general stuff. I think we just need to go scene by scene as possible. I'm going to consult my notes because this shit is so forgettable that I think we're going to need to. And I took plenty of notes of what happened. So
Actually, okay, I have one more thing I want to say before we go into this. This movie desperately needed to be more nu metal.
Oh yeah.
Like, if you look at like Blade, that movie is very nu metal. Even though it doesn't specifically have nu metal music in it, it has that like vibe to it. Or something like the Spawn movie.
Yeah.
That movie is terrible. It's not good, but it has a cool gothic nu metal vibe to it. And it has nu metal music. And it's like, it's not a good movie, but you can watch it for the aesthetic of it and enjoy that. The problem with Underworld is that it doesn't have... It kind of has a cool gothic aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
But there's no cool moments. So you never really get to enjoy it.
Yeah. That's... When it comes to movies like this, where strange oddities that were really popular back in the day, but were part of the zeitgeist, but then kind of get forgotten about, they, even if they're kind of crap, they always have one scene, and it's usually the opening scene, where you look at it and you're like, oh, I understand why this was remembered. Like Blade. Yeah. That first scene is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Yeah. Honestly, I think we should shut up about Blade, because we could make this whole thing about Blade. To the extent that I think we need to do a Blade episode, because that is a very important film.
We may maybe we should do a Blade double feature of Blade 1 and 2. We could do a triple feature of the whole trilogy while we're at it.
Maybe.
Could be a fun special episode.
Maybe sometime down the line, because I do think we need to talk about Blade.
Yes. He is in the intro.
Yeah. I think we will need to do that, because if it hasn't been obvious by how much we've talked about Blade so far, when we're not even discussing his
Have
film.
we mentioned Blade in either of the previous
No, we
episodes?
haven't, but Blade is...
that just reminded me.
Yeah?
We're not going to do a review on this film. We watched Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Blade is in that movie. Spoiler alert. He's in the movie briefly. To sum it up, it's trying to be a smart commentary on Marvel movies, but it never fully goes in on it, and it's never really that smart. It's just kind of... Yeah, it just feels like another Marvel film to me anyway.
Everything it complains about, it just does.
Yeah. Not a very good film. I didn't really like it.
I don't want to talk... I don't want to fucking talk about this movie.
That's the mini review of Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah. But anyway, if it's not clear already, I think Blade is one of... definitely awakened some things in me. In terms of how... Yeah.
It's quite a way to put it.
Yeah, it did though. Like, I remember watching that when I was like 12 or 13, and being like, oh, this is the sickest shit I've ever seen in my life. And that's never really left me. And then as soon as you saw it way later than I did, it just immediately became this thing of like both of us. There are some things, I think it's going to be clear in this podcast, there are some things that I think me and you just see and we're immediately like, yeah, this is the shit.
Yeah.
This is the best shit ever.
See, that's what I was like, when you see the cover for Underworld, you hear the premise, and like you have a general idea like I did. I was like, oh, this is going to be like Blade. This is going to be kind of cringy and like kind of corny and stupid, but it's going to be like cool as fuck at the same time.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't.
Yeah, the opening shot and the like movie poster are
the heights of this film.
Yeah, you look at those and you're like, that looks sick, and then you leave it there. Don't bother. Like,
because as soon as the actual action scene starts, which is such a wooden, stiff action scene, it's mostly one guy standing here and one guy standing here, and they shoot at each other. Yeah. And they just so happen to miss.
Very, very just non-dynamic. Whenever shots happen, it's either like very obscured, shaky cam, that kind of bullshit, or it's somebody standing in place with a completely dead expression, pointing and shooting at something, and there's very little peril, there's very little anything.
Yeah, most action scenes have like bits. Obviously, in action scenes, you have bits where people move around wherever area they're in. But in Underworld, someone will like walk to another like bit of cover, but they'll really casually walk over to it. It's not like they're diving over, they're running. They just kind of walk.
Yeah, and especially Kate Beckinsale in this, who plays Celine, really wooden.
Yeah.
No charisma whatsoever, really. Like, you compare her to Mila Jovovich.
Oh, yeah.
In fucking Resident Evil, and it's like, yeah, that is someone who just is walking around. Everything's the most important thing ever.
Yeah.
She's taking it completely seriously. And it's like, yeah, this is a fucking movie star.
Yeah.
With Kate Beckinsale in this, she's so... I don't think there's a single frame where she appears on screen where her eyebrows aren't furrowed. It's like, it's just one expression.
Yeah.
Just like slight... I don't know, intrigue or like not being quite sure of what you're looking at, but like...
Yeah.
It's just that expression for the whole thing. And that's whether she's shooting somebody, whether she's looking at the man who we're supposed to believe she's sexually attracted to.
Yeah.
Whether she's reading a fucking book.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, she starts reading a book at one point.
Yeah, it's just nothing. There's just nothing really to latch onto. Like throughout the whole thing, that's its problem. It's like, I feel like there's just nothing. There's just nothing. Yeah. So after this action scene where we just have whatever werewolves shooting at vampires, all that kind of stuff, we get introduced to the werewolves. There's like some underground thing where the werewolves are, where Michael Sheen plays the main werewolf guy. It looks very different. I was looking at him and was like, yeah, that is Michael Sheen. Well, I looked at him and said that's Martin Sheen because I wrote Martin Sheen in my notes when that's Charlie Sheen's dad.
Yeah.
But whatever, doesn't matter. Different people.
Yeah.
I looked at that and said that's Martin Sheen when it was actually Michael Sheen.
Yes.
But he's very like made up, and he's got like long hair.
Yeah.
And like a beard and stuff. He's actually pretty good. I think he does deliver
he's alright.
A good enough performance. He definitely understands that it's supposed to be campy, even though it kind of doesn't ever have enough fun with itself to really be camp. But he's grand.
Yeah.
We get the bit where there's like an underground werewolf fight club, where they're just like fighting each other, and this is where you see the actual like wolf part of the lycans.
Yeah.
And it mostly looks a bit shit.
It's mostly CGI, which is... This movie came out, what year? Like
2003.
2003. CGI is not good, but sometimes they're practical effects where it's an actual guy in like a wolf suit. And that looks really
genuinely good. Quite impressive. There are some bits where it's like, oh, that looks good. And then they turn back to CG and it's like, this just looks kind of ugly.
Yeah.
And so he comes in, he's like, you're behaving like animals, which is just great.
Also, the two like werewolves that are fighting, they slowly de-transform and they are ass naked.
Yeah, you just get like a shot of these like kind of sorrowful looking hairy men.
Yeah.
Who just are really embarrassed and naked, and it's kind of funny, but not really intentionally. They're just like, they look like they. I mean, if the energy is dog, they got it, because they do kind of have the expression of like a dog that's just shit on the carpet, and you'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
They're just kind of looking. Yeah. I thought that was funny. Whatever.
Although I don't know if that was on purpose.
Absolutely not. No. But it was.
Yeah.
Maybe the bit where he says they're supposed to behave like they're behaving like animals was supposed to be funny, because it's like, oh, that's clever, because they actually like kind of are animals. But
I feel like that's more.
Really.
I feel like the way it was said, it was supposed to be like a smart line.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like, oh, I get it, because technically they are animals, but it's like.
Yeah. Not really. Like it's such an obvious just script thing where it's like, there's a lot of stuff in here where I'm like, I feel like if you read that again or read it out loud, you would immediately be like, oh, I should probably change that. I should probably edit that. This isn't a great script in any real capacity, but there's some really wooden dialogue.
There was like a load of just like weird lines or whatever. You know?
There's one that in particular that I took down that I'm gonna share with you. There's a bit where Celine and the character Can, who's played by one of the guys from Snatch.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to the auto-generated subtitles thing.
Yeah.
So, when this character was first introduced, and someone said their name, the subtitles thought they said clan, with a K.
Yeah.
And it seemed quite unfortunate that they would name this,
one of the two...
Yeah, one of the only two black characters, which the other black character gets whipped at one point.
It's really weird. This movie does not really understand any real issue deeply enough, but like I feel like if you read that out, where he gets whipped or whatever, it's just a bit like, I don't know what imagery we're going for here, because it's not connected to anything.
No.
It's just completely... It's just weird. It just doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, for most of the movie, we thought they named a character Clan.
Yeah.
Until we looked in the credits, and it was actually Can.
Yeah.
Kind of funny.
Yeah, but anyway, the line I was gonna say.
Yes.
Can says to Celine after talking about Craven and his they figure out he's in league with the Lycans.
Craven is like the leader of the vampires.
Yeah, he kind of looks a bit like Scott Stapp.
Yeah.
And Can says, "I've never underestimated Craven's lust for advancement." What the like? Who fucking talks like that? So yeah. Anyway, we get back to after like in Fight Club, whatever, we come back to the vampire compound. We're introduced to Scott Stapp,
Yes.
and he has this bizarre, implaceable accent throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's really odd. I think he's Northern Irish. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because I got more Northern Ireland than anything. But
There's definitely bits where it sounds like he's doing an American accent.
there are bits where he sounds American. There are like bits where I'm like, is he like Australian or something? And then there are like, I definitely got a few bits where it's like, is he Russian or like Eastern European or something? And then there are like a word or two where I'm like, is he like fucking South African or something? It's just so, it changes.
It's really all over the place.
It's so inconsistent and also doesn't make sense because nobody else has any of those accents in the film.
Yeah.
Except for American for some reason.
All of the like vampires and werewolves are British, except for this one guy who is the leader of the vampires. And the only person who has an American accent is the human. Well, human.
Yeah, the human and like the cops.
Do they even speak?
They do, because when he's like transforming in the back of the car, he goes like, "Fuck him."
There's two like police officers
and his doctor friend.
Yeah.
At that strange hospital that definitely shouldn't be running.
There's two police officers in this movie, and they show up from time to time, and it's like, these are the only two police officers we see for the whole film.
Yeah.
And they just show up, and it's like they're looking for the human guy, and they're also like a general bad guy, but they never like actually fight.
Yeah.
And it's just two policemen.
Yeah. Like, one of the huge problems with this film is the world building.
Yeah, I was so disappointed because they spend the whole movie, almost every bit in this movie is either in one of the group's hideouts or the end of the movie, which is in a fucking sewer.
Yeah, it's like
underground place.
Yeah.
Like, I would have loved if there was bits where they're in like a busy like city, and they have to like, you know, maybe they're having a fight, but they can't like go all out because, you know, they're vampires and werewolves, and if they reveal themselves to the general public, they'll get fucking killed.
Yeah, it's like
that could have been interesting.
It's using the premise to tell a story
and just to do cool shit.
Yeah,
there's no point in this film where they're like, we have vampires versus werewolves shooting pistols at each other. Let's do some cool shit. It's always just, let's talk to each other about politics within the vampire and werewolf communities.
Yeah. Yeah, like... Yeah, whatever, fuck it.
I don't even know if I want to go through the events of this film. I don't even think it's worth it. You could, like, go through some of your notes.
Yeah.
Well, I just think, like, usually when there's a bad movie, like an especially bad movie, or just like a bad movie, not a mid or, you know, bad movie, you can go through the events and go, oh, there was this bit where they did this thing that was really funny, or I noticed this issue at this point. The problem is with Underworld is that it's not even a terrible movie in a sense of it's terribly made, it's really bad acted. What the fuck were they doing when they made this? It's just extremely, extremely mid.
Yeah.
It's so vapid of anything that you can hardly even laugh at it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like we said, there's no jokes. There's no funny bits.
No.
There's no like...
There's no bit where they made some baffling choice when making the film and it was really funny. It's just really boring.
Yeah, like any bit that's baffling it's baffling in how boring it is. And it's baffling in how, like, were you really, like, was that the coolest thing you could come up with?
Yeah.
Was that the most interesting turn of phrase you could use for that. Like, it's just it just like, okay, there are two bits in my mind where we looked at and was like, holy shit, that's funny. There's the bit where Celine is in like the apartment or whatever with your man, and she spins around and shoots the floor.
She shoots the floor to make a hole in the floor so she can like jump through it.
Yeah. And
what the fuck? Like, no!
Yeah. And she's just standing there for a good, like, 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah, while there's like 3 werewolves running at her.
Yeah, and she's just twirling about.
Yeah. Makes no sense.
Yeah, and then there was the other bit where Celine and Michael...
Oh, his name's Michael.
Yeah, are in the car being chased by Michael Sheen. I'm not arsed to remember his name.
Yeah.
And there's a shot where he runs really fast.
Yeah.
And then jumps onto the car, which is quite funny.
Then he gets hit by the car, even though it's very obvious that they are revving up the engine and then speeding towards him. And he slowly turns around and he gets hit by a fucking car.
Yeah. Like that scene's also a mess because like he jumps onto it and then Celine is like bleeding and she's like, "Oh, I'm fine," but then he's like, "No, you're losing blood. You're gonna pass out." And she's like, "No, I'm fine. I'm doing a voice, but like she's on it. She isn't acting like she's losing blood."
Yeah.
And then like they're just driving, and then she falls asleep, and then he's like, "Shit!"
Yeah.
And then they crash into the fucking sea, and it's like,
yeah.
what's the point? Like,
also, the vampires in this movie are not vampires.
Yeah.
Because there's the inconsistency of, there's one scene where she gets like a cut on her shoulder.
Yeah.
Like that scene we were just talking about. It's not even a bad cut. It just kind of grazes her shoulder, and now she's passed out. But like near the end of the movie, she's activating, she's like bringing this like ancient vampire back from not the dead, but he's like underground and he's like you know, all like gross and like rotted. So she bites into her wrist and like pours blood out on him. But she's fine then.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
And I think there's only one bit in this whole movie where it's someone drinks blood, and it's when 2 of the vampires are having sex. For no reason.
Yeah.
That's the only time someone drinks blood or does anything vampire-like. Other than that, they're just people who are really pale and wear like leather and gothic clothes.
Yeah.
They're not vampires.
Yeah, like if I went up to fucking Dublin city centre and walked around long enough, I'd see as convincing a vampire as in this fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Also, speaking of them not being vampires and the topic of that one sex scene, these are the least sexual vampires I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
There's no sexual tension in this movie whatsoever.
No.
And that's such a strong part of vampire lore.
Yeah.
The sexual element, it's all about desire and...
Isn't there, in Metal Gear Solid 2...
Oh, yeah.
There's a character called Vamp.
Yeah.
Who they call him that because he's bisexual.
Yeah. not because he looks and acts like a vampire.
No, because he's bisexual. And, like, you look at, like, most vampire characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're sexual.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, the novella Carmilla, which is a old book from like the 1870s, I think. Maybe even earlier, I don't know, but either way, before Dracula even, like a good few decades before Dracula. Very early in terms of like solidifying what a vampire is in popular culture. That is all sexual tension.
Yeah.
It's all the vampire Carmilla and Laura. It's been a while since I've read it. I think her name is Laura, and the person she is preying upon, And like for a book in like written that long ago, where like censorship was a big thing in any kind of romantic gesture, that is one of the most. It's so just like everything is just dripping in sexual angst, and it's like that. Like I feel like that should always be an undertone.
Yeah.
If we're talking about vampire media, there should always be this like, you know, people should be talking in low tones and like kind of whispering to each other and.
The problem is
moments away from biting each other in the neck or whatever.
When they whisper in this movie, you can't hear what they're saying because the soundtrack is just drowning out their voice entirely.
Yeah, and the guy who's not even a vampire, the fucking werewolf guy.
Yeah.
Michael, he sounds like his voice is like air coming out of a fucking week-old balloon. It's just like...
He's always mumbling under his breath.
What are you doing? Like, he sucks. He's terrible.
Yeah.
Like the main core relationship in the film that we're supposed to believe have some kind of sexual or romantic chemistry. I had more fucking romantic chemistry with the fucking toast I ate this morning. Like, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Because it comes out of nowhere as well.
Yeah.
There's no reason for it other than that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I would say, the guy who made the original idea or story made something that was probably a lot better and a lot more interesting. And then it got swooped up by like Hollywood executives and they added a bunch of shit to it. They removed all like anything interesting.
Yeah.
And we ended up with the film that we got. So I feel like it's just like a misunderstanding of that initial idea and just kind of leaving that bit in, but not, you know, actually expanding on it. Yeah. Really a dreadful film.
Yeah, like... Yeah.
Is there even more to say about it?
I think there are a few things to just... So just to say we've covered everything.
Yeah.
There's some more things that I think we can say.
Okay.
Bill Nighy's character in this, Victor, he is the old leader of the vampires.
Yes. He's the one that gets like brought back from his slumber.
Yeah. This is like halfway through the movie, I think.
Around halfway through the
movie.
movie.
Halfway through the movie. Was it around here that we paused?
Yeah, at about an hour in, we paused the movie and seriously contemplate tapping out on this film.
Yeah, because it was like, after stopping, when we paused it wasn't so much, oh, we're only an hour in, because it was like, yeah, it makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
We're an hour in. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
It was the fact that we had an hour left.
Yeah, this movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
It has the fucking balls to make you sit there for 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I would say an hour and 45 is people talking.
Yeah, like, this movie would have been so much better if it cut itself down to about...
An hour 30.
Hour 30 to hour 45 at a stretch. Cut out all the boring lore shit.
Yeah.
Cut out, like, just the like precious seconds that are spent waiting for stuff.
Yeah.
The scene where before Victor gets awakened, you have his like tomb come out of the ground.
Yeah.
And she just stands there.
Yeah.
For like fucking 20 seconds of nothing interesting happening other than the thing coming out of the ground.
There's lots of points in this movie where I feel like they included a scene because they had to, not because they wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, there's lots of people enter a room, so we see them walking through the door and walking into the middle of the room or wherever it is they're going to. We don't need to see that.
Yeah.
But, well, technically you need to see them walk into the room.
Yeah.
So you know they're there now. But realistically, when you want to make an exciting or interesting movie, you don't need to show everything for it to make logical sense. Our brains can fill in the blanks of this person wasn't here before, now they're here. That's it.
Yeah, so if you cut down the lore shit, the wasted time, the random subplots that go nowhere, all that stuff, and added in like another action scene bang in the middle.
1 or 2, I think.
This could have been like a 6 out of 10.
It could have been decent.
It could have been and I say 6 out of 10 as a compliment to what I wanted this film to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes a 6 out of 10 is like the best movie
I was
ever.
fully ready for it to be like a 5 or 6 out of 10, but a fun one. Like one that I actually liked.
Yeah, one that I'll look back on and be like, yeah, it wasn't perfect, there were some bits that dragged, whatever. But like, as an overall experience, you know, at the very least, I got to see a vampire woman in all leather run around and shoot people.
Yeah.
If that was the movie, I was being happy with that.
Yeah.
I would have been
It would have been cool as hell.
Yeah, it would have been like, you know what, that was just some empty style, but it was a style that I liked, so I was left happy.
Yeah.
But I wasn't left happy because it doesn't deliver on that. Like, all I had to do was deliver in the most basic way possible.
Yeah. And it's something that most other, even bad action movies do deliver on.
Mm.
Even if it has a boring plot that makes no sense, you still get action scenes where it's like, okay, it's not great, but it's an action scene. Something's happening. This movie just doesn't do it.
Mm.
It has no action for a film that is about 2 gangs going to war.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like...
Yeah. So anyway, Bill Nighy gets awakened, Victor, whatever. And this is like probably the best visual in the whole film that I do think is actually like quite cool. It kind of goes nowhere and kind of doesn't get developed. Kind of goes away, whatever. But when he does get up and he's all wrinkled and withered, and he has like red tubes in his back, that's all blood and everything.
Yeah.
That is actually like a really striking image and does contrast well.
Yeah.
Where you've got the kind of muted, bleaker colours and then the really like intense red.
Mm.
It's like if the movie had more contrast, you know.
Yeah.
That when it does, it's like, oh, you actually have kind of a striking image here. But yeah, I liked that, and then we get a bunch of her reading a book or whatever. I can't remember if that's before or after. Maybe she does it again. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I know for a fact we get a bunch of lore.
Yeah. Like way too much lore to even keep track of, or that it's a lot of lore that hasn't been explained, but they're adding more onto the stuff that hasn't been explained.
Yeah.
So you just get further and further from understanding every time they do it.
Yeah, it's a weird thing where I wish they explained less, even though I wish they explained less, because with the amount of over-explaining they do, I still came away with basically no knowledge of how that world works.
Yeah.
Like, there are choices here where if this was in another movie, I'd be like, that's actually kind of a cool and interesting choice. Like, the fact that it kind of takes place out of time and out of a real concrete setting. If that was in... I love stuff like that. I love it when like a story or art it kind of has fun with the idea of like, this isn't real life, so we don't have to abide by the rules of this takes place in this country and this has these rules. I like stuff like that, where like regular show, you know, where it takes place in America and kind of in modern day, but then you'll see like old 80s phones and video games and stuff like that. Like that's just the example that comes most to mind, but stuff like that I think is really fun and interesting. The fact that it's kind of hard to pin down where this takes place could be cool if the movie didn't want me to understand and believe the politics of the world.
Yeah.
Like, it... So, the vampires and the werewolves have English accents, except for the one guy who has a Northern Irish question mark accent.
Yeah.
But the people all have... the humans all have American accents.
Yeah.
Except for the one bit, and this confused me for the whole thing. There's a bit where other vampires show up. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Where they have the guy who's talking has an American accent, and he's like, "Our two great houses may be separated by a wide ocean," and I was like, "Okay, so are we in America or are we in the UK? Because that would imply that they're coming. One of them is coming to another place."
Yeah.
Which would either be the US or the UK. But because you would expect that the ones with the English accents would be the English ones in England. But you've got this American guy talking about this vampire house coming over across the Great Ocean. Unless they're talking about like some other clan, and they just happen to have an American guy there.
Because
it just does, like,
to confuse it even more, the very few bits that we do get of the human world look like they're in Germany or some part of Europe.
Yeah,
and the signage is in, I couldn't figure out what language it was, but it was in English.
Yeah.
It was some European language.
Yeah, like you look at the trains and the trams, and then there's like a steam train as well.
Yeah.
And it just all feels very like Central Europe.
Yeah.
Like it could be like Hungary or Croatia or like Romania, which I guess would make sense because it's vampires, but also wouldn't because there's no hint that it takes place in Romania.
Yeah.
It's all just the world is somehow over-explained and under-explained.
Yeah, it's over-explained in the wrong places.
Yeah, if it spent less time explaining the world, I would have accepted all these weird inconsistencies as just part of the tone.
Yeah.
And as a means to an end to just get to the fun stuff. But because it doesn't do that, now I'm not like, okay, well, why didn't you explain the other stuff? Because there's another bit where one of the I think Khan says, "Oh, the media are going to be talking about this," and it's like, but the only bit of the outside world we have is the start, and then we're never in the outside world.
There's like a shootout or something, or some big thing happens at the vampire house.
Yeah,
and then one of the vampires says, "Oh, the media should be here soon."
Yeah.
But why would the media be coming to talk to the vampires about a shootout?
Yeah.
Why? Because, like, we know that they have to hide the fact that they are vampires and werewolves because they talk about hiding their true identity of, like, what they actually are from the public. And in the bit where, at the very start of the movie, where they have the shootout in the train station, they don't use their werewolf powers or their vampire stuff until they are hidden from people. And when the vampires go back to their boss, he's like, "Why would you do that out in public? People are going to know that you're vampires."
Yeah.
So why would the media be coming to their fucking hideout?
Yeah, like for the whole movie, if we're just like, okay, this just takes place in a secret society where we don't have to worry about any outside consequences. Why bring it up? Why bring it up so far into the movie?
It just makes no sense.
Yeah, it really doesn't. So just to skip ahead, I think we should kind of just get to the end, get to the big twist, and be rid of this film for the rest of our lives.
Okay.
So there is kind of a bit to go into here. So throughout this film, we're on the side of the vampires, basically.
Well,
kind of.
The vampires and the werewolves are both bad guys.
Yeah.
Neither of them are good. They both kill people indiscriminately. That is just what they do.
Yeah.
And then it is revealed that in like medieval times, I guess,
Yeah.
that werewolves were slaves
Yeah.
to vampires. Absolutely fucking wild that they put that in the movie. And then it becomes a thing where you're like, oh, so the vampires are the bad guys and the werewolves are the good guys. But the problem is, the bad guy in this movie, who has been the bad guy for the whole movie, who we're like aiming to kill,
Yeah.
is the leader of the werewolves because he's trying to make a super vampire werewolf hybrid to kill everybody,
Yeah.
including humans.
Yeah.
That is his goal. So when we hear, oh, the werewolves were enslaved by the vampires, we don't go, okay, they're the good guys, the vampires the bad guys. We go, no, everyone's fucking terrible in this movie. There is no one to root for.
Yeah, it's like, we don't need that.
Yeah,
you know, this
it's
isn't
completely unneeded.
This isn't clever enough to be able to balance those things. This isn't like a John Woo movie where it's able to balance like high romance and fucking crazy action and really complicated emotional stuff with, you know, just balance all of that together.
Yeah.
This should just be, keep it simple. You can have some dark stuff, you can have some complexity, you can use the premise to say some stuff that's kind of interesting, but making it this weird thing where it turns out the werewolves are just like, it goes from a kind of ambiguous racial metaphor to like, we're basically saying that the vampires are stand-ins for like black people or whatever because they're slaves now.
No, the werewolves are the...
Oh, sorry, did I say vampires?
Yeah,
Or did I say werewolves?
and also it's really weird that they reveal the fact that the werewolves are slaves, and then a few scenes later, the one black werewolf gets whipped.
Yeah, it's so fucked.
That is crazy. You
That's-
can't do that.
That's fucked.
Like, that is fucked.
Yeah.
If this was a smart movie,
Yeah.
and there was something to it, I would have gone, okay, it's a bit on the nose, but fuck it, it's doing something good with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is an idiotic movie. And the fact that they go, oh, I know, what if they whip the werewolf like a slave?
Yeah.
No! And especially because it's the one black werewolf.
Yeah.
And also, there's only one black vampire.
Yeah.
In a movie where it is supposed to be a metaphor for interracial dating,
Yeah.
you have two black characters on opposite sides, and everyone else is white.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a profoundly confused film.
Yeah.
And like just adding more weird racial stuff into it with
Yeah.
the whole slaves thing is just completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
And just takes what could just be a simple runaround premise and takes it and makes it just way too uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For what it should be.
Yeah. It really should have just been Celine is a vampire and she is trying to stop the big bad werewolf from killing everyone. So she goes and like takes down their operations or something like that.
Yeah, and
because that would have been fun. You could go through action scenes and you could have little lore dumps in between to facilitate more action scenes.
Yeah, and
like Blade, no less.
Yeah. I'm glad we managed to not talk too much about Blade past the first while.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could still have that twist and have it be like a, oh shit, that's fun, that's a cool twist.
Yeah.
But like, there's just too much. It's too bloated.
Yeah.
It's so fucking bloated. There's a whole thing of Celine and her backstory of why she's a vampire and how when she was a little girl her family were butchered by, it's implied werewolves. I think if I remember correctly it's implied werewolves.
Yeah.
Because that's what I got from it. It was like, oh, they were killed by werewolves and she's found by Victor, who then turns her into a vampire so she can get revenge on the werewolves.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's that's fine. But then it gets in the twist. It turns out Victor is like fucking. He actually killed her family.
Yeah.
And it just like why?
I feel like it would have been interesting if it was like, oh, she finds out that the vampires were enslaving the werewolves, but also a vampire like saved her life, and she has to have that moral question of, do I support these people or do I not?
Yeah,
that could have been an interesting thing.
Yeah,
no,
rather than it being like a weird, like,
just plot twist.
Yeah,
for the sake of a plot twist.
Yeah, just to make us be like, oh, so he's a bad guy now.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's always been a bad guy now.
If him being a slave owner wasn't bad enough.
Yeah, and it's just like, do we want this film to be goodies versus baddies?
Yeah.
Or do we want it to be a fucking complex treatise on race relations in America? And like, it doesn't do either well.
No.
You just end up with a film that doesn't know what it is.
Walks in a direction and kind of just stumbles all the way and never really reaches a conclusion.
Yeah, and just ends up being this weirdly bloodless action film.
That's crazy. There's no blood in this movie.
There's the amount of shots of people getting shot.
Yeah,
and there's
no blood.
There's no blood.
Even when someone gets their blood drank.
Yeah.
There's like a little bit of blood around someone's mouth, and that's it.
Yeah, and there are bits where there's kind of gore, like when the guy gets like punched in the face to like one werewolf doctor.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a good effect, but like, so when I saw that, I was like, okay, so it's not. It doesn't seem like it's an age rating thing. It or whatever. It just seems like it's just creative decisions.
Probably laziness.
Just get a few squibs. Just get a few squibs. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you had to do. Or have like, you don't have to go crazy on like dismemberment or anything, because that can be hard.
Yeah.
Well, get a few fucking squibs.
Yeah.
Or if you're blowing
CGI.
if you're blowing all this money on CGI like transformation scenes and like weird internal tendony shit.
Yeah.
Just put in a few blood splatters.
Yeah.
Like it can't be
it's
that
so
hard.
strange.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically it's revealed that the human guy, Michael, is actually a werewolf, but he's not transformed yet, and the leader of the werewolves is gonna make him a half vampire, half werewolf. So he becomes like a super weapon that he can kill everyone with.
Yeah.
And so the leader of the werewolves gets killed. Does the leader of the vampires get killed, or does he just kind of fuck off?
What, the Victor?
No.
Or Craven?
Craven.
He does get killed. I think Celine kills him.
Oh, yeah.
I think she like shoots him or something.
Basically, it's the final showdown between the head vampire.
Yeah.
Right? And Michael, this apparent super weapon, like unstoppable being.
Yeah, just an utter killing machine.
Yeah, who is half vampire, half werewolf.
Yeah.
All that happens is his skin turns grey, and he's a little bit stronger, but he gets his shit kicked in.
Yeah, he loses.
He loses, and then Celine picks up a sword and cuts his head off.
Yeah, in half. He cuts his head in half.
In half.
Yeah, which again, that's such a because I remember the only bits I remember from this film from watching it before was like really the end.
Yeah.
And it was really just, I remember they ended up in the sewer and somebody gets their, like, there's like the bit where she does the flip and she goes with the sword and something gory happens, but I couldn't remember exactly what. And then I was like, oh, his head gets split in half.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's also, again, weirdly bloodless, and I get, like, and it's like, it's not because he's a vampire, because we've established that they need blood circulation. So, like, yeah, it's just strange. It's just, it's just so limp.
Yeah. But yeah, Celine and Michael run away into the sunset.
That's about it.
There's sequel bait where they're like, oh, one of the other ancient vampires is going to get reawakened, and then now they're going to have to fight this guy. Who cares?
Yeah, it really just isn't. It
dreadful fucking movie.
Yeah, really bad. I was very disappointed at this film.
Yeah.
I was hoping for something at least fun. Yeah, I think we've talked all we can about this film.
Yeah. So, right.
What
I can't even think of something funny to make the thing.
Oh, I know. Remember the weird cum bullets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, how many cum bullets out of 5?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that.
Yeah,
they make bullets that put like metal into your bloodstream.
Yeah, it's silver nitrate so that they kill the vampires not vampires, fucking werewolves by instead of just using a silver bullet that they can just take out of them. Yeah. They use it explodes into silver nitrate, so it just goes directly into the bloodstream.
Yeah, but it never does anything.
Anyway.
Yeah. How many cum bullets out of 5, Emmett?
1.5.
1.5.
1.5.
Yeah.
I did not like this. I was thinking, like, after watching this, I was like, oh God, what am I going to rate this? Because I wanted to be positive about it, but I just really couldn't. Like, I never want to watch this again. Like, it was just a complete waste of time.
I'm gonna...
No, it's not a complete waste of time. That's just me not liking the film and saying stuff that I don't believe. I don't think it was a waste of time because I don't really think...
Yeah.
We've talked about it, so it's not a waste of time, is what I'm trying to say.
I'm also going to go 1.5.
Yeah, fair.
The only thing that I'm really giving it points on is the aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like, it's the only thing the movie has going for it.
Yeah.
And it kind of looks cool.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, so our second film this episode is Happy Together by Wong Kar-wai.
Yeah.
Emmett, give us an introduction.
So, Happy Together is, to put it simply, a film about a gay couple from Hong Kong who go to Argentina, not initially to stay, but as it happens to stay, and they have a complicated relationship. They break up and get back together, if you want to say that.
Kind
Not
of.
really. Like, it's very complicated.
Yeah.
They end up living together anyway, and the film essentially explores loneliness.
Yes.
And intimacy, and how kind of both things can kind of be the same thing. I don't know. This film is a lot.
It is a lot.
I fucking loved it. I'm not even gonna like be like, oh, we should get it. Let's get into. This was amazing. Like,
yes.
This is absolutely.
This is an amazing movie.
I get, like, after I watched this, I was like, oh, what will I rate this? Whatever. I gave it a very high rating on Letterboxd. I honestly, the way the way the film just sticks in your head, and you just keep thinking it clings to you. That I'm just like, it's it's truly a film that you only really start interacting with once the credits have already rolled, and you're really just like, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, this film, when it was premiered at Cannes Film Festival, there was some outrage.
Right.
Because this movie, very early on, has a kind of, not lengthy, but considerable length and a bit uncomfortable gay sex scene.
Yeah.
And this is placed right at the start of the film on purpose.
Yeah.
It is confronting you with it and saying, this is a thing, it's completely normal, it's not disgusting, that's just how it is. Gay people have sex.
Yeah.
And many people left the screening.
Wow.
And said that it's a disgusting movie, it shouldn't be allowed to be shown, whatever.
Yeah.
Terrible stuff. And one thing about this movie, which when I first watched this, I think I rated it 4.5.
Yeah.
And like upon thinking about it more and learning this extra detail, I bumped it up to a full 5 stars.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
So this movie was released around the time of the handover in Hong Kong, where Hong Kong as a state was given from the British to the Chinese.
Yeah.
Right? So that time in Hong Kong was a very a lot of stuff was up in the air.
Yeah.
And everything was kind of everything was up in the air. Stuff was like, people were worried about what was going to happen because of political stuff.
Yeah.
Everything was up for questioning, right? But especially the rights of gay people in the country was very much up for debate.
Yeah, because I'm actually very interested about that specifically, because I know in mainland China it's a very like, gay stuff is not really allowed.
Yeah.
In the public sphere. I don't know if homosexuality is outright outlawed, but I know based around the popular relationship with gay media, it's just not really allowed to be promoted in any way.
So, when making this film, Wong Kar-wai wanted to, in some ways, avoid the topic of the handover because it was such a big issue that he was like, I don't want to talk about this. I just want to make a movie that is not about it. But at the same time, you can really look into this film and elements about it and see parallels and kind of commentaries on it, because like, it's not set in Hong Kong, but it's definitely about Hong Kong as a city, as a state, as a concept, and just the fact that it is about a gay couple. It's like, it's almost, the point of that is like, it's a gay couple, but it's not a point in the movie. It's basically just like, this is a couple between two people, just the same as a straight couple. It's viewed in the exact same way.
Yeah, and like, I usually kind of hate it when people, use straight people, basically say about a gay film, oh, they just happen to be gay, it's not really about that. Because a lot of the time it is. It is a pretty significant element of how we interact with the film visually, because when we visually look at two gay people, it just has that significantly changes our relationship with love and what the film is saying about it. But in this, it genuinely is like, there are elements of this film that are specific and ways the plot goes, where it's like, this would be different, and certain things would happen that wouldn't happen if this was a straight couple. But it really is just like such a naked, intimate portrait of love as a thing. Regardless of any real social element, or not social, like political element, at least within the relationship between the two people. It's not like, there's no bit where Tony Leung turns to the camera and is like, oh my god, it's so hard being gay and from Hong Kong. Like, there's nothing like that. But I've not really seen a film do that before. Yeah.
It's something that I really admire about this film.
Yeah.
Because it completely portrays them just a regular couple. Just the same as any other couple between a man and a woman in any other movie. And it's doing it like on purpose with good reason. Because it's like basically just being like, these people deserve just as many rights to do what they want as a straight couple do, which is like, you know,
and also doesn't try to sugarcoat anything.
Yeah.
This is such a harsh film in a lot of ways that it never tries to be like, you know, obviously gay films about love that works out need to and should exist, and you know, I'm not saying anything like that. I mean, I fucking love like But I'm a Cheerleader.
Yeah.
That movie is absolutely amazing, and that's like about the most sweetest gay film ever.
Yeah.
But in this, it's like, it's at no point is it trying to be like, look at how beautiful gay love can be. It's just about love in general, and how in a sense that it doesn't even have to be, because of how ambiguously romantic they are throughout the film, except for obviously the sex scene.
Yeah.
It's about human interaction.
Yeah.
In any context, it's about when you know we sit next to someone and look at them and invite them into our lives. You know, how good are they for us?
Yeah,
like it can be about really anybody.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not even exclusively a gay story, because there are points where obviously it's not just never gonna acknowledge the idea of homophobia.
Yeah.
There is a bit near the end, I'm not going into it, where it is like spoken about that one of the characters' father is ashamed of him. And so obviously it's bringing up that idea. But at the same time, you could replace one of the men with a woman, or both of them with a woman, and the story is still the exact same thing, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like there's some stuff, like there is some stuff in there about where it's not really about it, but where you have kind of some hookup stuff and some like,
but like the general idea of the whole story, you know,
it's not really trying to make the case for anything. You know, which, you know, again, like I said, we do need films to make the case for things, but I really like that this film doesn't really feel like it needs to do that in any way. It's just them being people is enough to just explore their relationship in any way without trying to fit any kind of agenda or whatever about whether that's a good agenda or not. It doesn't really matter. It's, you know, and again, not saying anything bad about films that have those agendas, but like it's just really good. Like I don't know. Where do we?
I think we start with the two main characters, the two that are in this couple together, is Tony Leung, who, I will say this till the day I die, Tony Leung is one of the greatest actors to ever live.
I was thinking this when I was thinking about, what am I going to say? I wanted to bring this up as well. Tony, if you are having a conversation about the greatest male actors of all time, okay? You want to talk about Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Jack Nicholson, Marlon Brando, all those guys. If you do not bring up Tony Leung, you have not seen a Tony Leung film.
The way he acts is so subtle, and you would almost think, oh, well, of course. But the way that he does it, he says 1,000 words, he expresses 1,000 different emotions in single facial expressions that are so perfect and so realistic and so human that it is almost unbelievable. The first time I realized this, and the first movie I saw Tony Leung in, Hard Boiled, John Woo.
Yeah.
There's a bit, I'm not going to go into the details because I don't want to spoil Hard Boiled. I'll probably end up talking about it at some point.
Yeah, we fucking will.
There's a bit where Tony Leung is playing a gangster, and he is being told by another kind of boss of a gangster family, if you kill your boss of your current family, like gang, you can come join me and we'll be really powerful. And he does it. He takes a gun out and he shoots this, like, his boss, who he's very close with, who he knows cares for him. And when he shoots him, he has a look on his face like, yeah, I just fucking did that, come and get me. But as soon as he turns around and no one's looking, his face drops to an expression where you understand every intricacy of his emotions that he's feeling right now, just from the look on his face.
Yeah.
And the way it goes from one to the other.
Yeah, and if we want to see another scene of him acting, now this is the ending of a film.
Yeah.
But the ending scene of Chungking Express.
Yeah.
The way he looks at Fei Wong in that scene is absolutely insane. Watch Chungking Express anyway.
Yeah. Watch both of those movies. Hard Boiled and Chungking Express.
Yeah, we should. I think we should preface our Wong Kar-wai because both of us love Wong Kar-wai. I'd say about the same, but I do think you found him first.
Yeah.
And every Wong Kar-wai film that I've watched, like, I have watched and been like, that's one of the best things I've ever seen. I can't believe how good of a director this is.
Yeah.
But I've only watched them because you brought them to me.
Yeah. Fallen Angels is my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
I don't think any movie will surpass it because it was like, I liked movies before.
Yeah.
But watching that film and seeing how, like, the tiniest details, like the movements of the camera or the framing, are so meaningful and actually add to the emotions of the characters and stuff like that. Just seeing a film that is so much more than just a story that you watch. It's like so much more than that, and I'd never seen that before, and I don't think any other movie will give me that feeling stronger than that movie.
Yeah.
Wong Kar-wai is like fucking amazing.
Yeah.
My favorite director. Yeah,
he's a strong contender for mine at this stage, honestly. Like, I absolutely adore everything I've seen. Watching a Wong Kar-wai film makes me want to make something.
Yeah.
Because it's just how free he is with how he expresses himself on film. And how low budget and amateurish some things feel in terms of just like, it's just him in a place with a camera.
Yeah.
Obviously with a crew, but like,
it's the way that he does it.
Yeah.
It's the way he works with these like low budget, very simple setups and makes some of the most beautiful like shots or pieces of film ever created.
Yeah, like if there's anything you should take away from this podcast as a whole, but this specific episode, watch fucking Chungking Express
and Fallen Angels.
Watch Fallen Angels, watch Happy Together. These are films that will...
And the thing is, apparently, In the Mood for Love, which is one I haven't watched yet, is supposed to be his best film.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Yeah, same.
Like, it gets better.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway.
Yeah. We have a very strong relationship with this director.
Yes.
His movies are the kind of film that I didn't know I wanted until I saw them and was like, oh, this is fucking real shit here.
Yeah.
This is like I'd watched stuff that was challenging and that was emotive and all that, but watching Fallen Angels for the first time was just like everything about it just completely blew me away. Like every film I've watched from him has blown me away. And I felt like every time I've watched one of his films, like this one, even though I only watched it yesterday, I feel like I'm living the film for a few days after I watched it.
Yeah.
When I watched Chungking Express, I was just walking around listening to music from the film and just re-experiencing the whole thing on repeat in my head days after I'd watched it. And that's so rare in a film, but like that's just what he does. That's just what he does.
To go back to the movie we're actually talking
about. Because I think it was worth saying all that because like again, watch all these movies.
So the two main characters, Tony Leung, amazing actor, and I've not seen him in anything else, but I know he's supposed to be really good. Leslie Chung, who was a very openly gay actor, bisexual, got quite popular and famous in Hong Kong.
I was reading his Wikipedia page last night when I couldn't sleep, but I want to know more about him because there's seems to be a lot there, but apparently he very big in like the Cantonese pop style. Wikipedia mentioned him being like, or maybe it was the Apple Music description, I can't remember which, but mentioned him as like one of the founding fathers of that style of music.
Oh wow.
Just insanely popular it seems. The only Cantopop singer I really know is Faye Wong, and I really like Faye Wong.
And that is also from a Wong Kar-wai film.
Go figure. It definitely seems like a very interesting and important figure.
Yeah, definitely.
That I would love to know more about.
But yeah, tragically committed suicide. Very, very young.
Like 46.
I think it wasn't too long after this movie came out, like maybe a few years.
A few years, if I remember correctly, it was like 2003.
Yeah.
So like
this came out in like 97.
Yeah.
So really not that long.
Yeah, apparently he suffered from like clinical depression for his whole life, and
really, really tragic.
Really sad
because he is like really good in this movie.
Yeah.
And like from what I've heard about every other film that he's in, he is like really, really good. But yeah, the two main characters are a gay couple, and I don't even know how to get into it. It's kind of like there are events or things that happen in the film, but at the same time it would almost be like describing two people having a conversation. Yeah.
It's so I think so just to lay out some of the things that happen, just so we have a bit of form to this.
Yeah.
They end up in Argentina. There's a scene where they're on a highway.
Yeah.
Nothing around, just fog. It's in black and white.
Actually, their goal in going to Argentina is they have this lamp that has a waterfall on it, and they think it looks really nice. So their goal in going to Argentina was to go and see this waterfall together and then leave. Which, that never really stops being the goal, to see that waterfall.
Yeah.
But at points it does get foggy, and it is kind of like, it becomes, sometimes it's more distant than it is, other times it is like really close. And most of the film is Tony Leung's character working, trying to save money to get home to Hong Kong, to go and see this waterfall, and just to get out of his pretty terrible living condition.
Yeah. So, after they basically break up,
Yeah.
We get a bit of voiceover of Tony Leung saying, or I think his name is Lai, I think,
Yeah.
Lai, but also sometimes it's Y, as in WAI. I'm not familiar enough with Cantonese naming conventions to really say like understand that, because again on the Wikipedia there's like a paragraph where they call him Lai and Y in the one paragraph, and it's like, okay, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
But I'll call him Lai, because that's what I said first.
Yeah.
Where there's an internal monologue which we get throughout the film of him saying and talking about how whenever they have gotten into the relationship has devolved and deteriorated to such an extent, Leslie Chung's character called Po Wing says, let's start over. And they always start over, supposedly.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have that motif running through it of, let's start over. But still they stop talking to each other, and we come back and Lai is working in a tango bar.
Yes.
Yeah. They kind of start interacting again.
Yeah.
I think that's, events wise, that's all we really need to cover thus far.
I'll just jump in and say, the scene where the two characters see each other again.
Yeah.
We get a very good music cue of a Frank Zappa song.
Yeah.
Which is not the first Frank Zappa song in this movie. There's actually two.
Yeah.
And both of them are played multiple times over.
Yeah, that's another very Wong Kar-wai thing of like having, well, like outside music anyway, but like playing it multiple times.
Yeah.
If you've seen Chungking Express, you probably by the end of that film you will know the entire lyrics of California Dreamin'.
Yeah, it is played many times in that movie. The soundtrack for this movie is very good.
Yeah.
As per usual, it is like licensed music.
Yeah.
It is like a mix of, I think there's only like 4 songs that are used. 2 of them are like kind of like Argentinian, like more like traditional sounding music.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that old. It's more just, a more traditional style.
Yeah, you hear it in the context of the film and you're like, that sounds like Argentinian music.
Yeah.
So,
and the other 2 songs are both by Frank Zappa. One of them is a kind of instrumental, kind of rock jazz piece, which is very good.
Yeah.
And the other one is, so I think it's actually a song about getting pegged. Because if you read the lyrics, he's pretty much saying that his significant other has been inside him and he has been inside them, and I think it's implied that it's a woman. And I think it's supposed to be a funny song.
Yeah.
But in the context of the film, it is kind of very literal.
Yeah.
But also kind of nice.
Yeah,
and
it fits. It's weird. I have weird feelings about Frank Zappa. There's like some. The album Hot Rats is like amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just jazz fusion that goes very heavy and very fuzzy and off the rails, and it's great. Like, listen to that.
Yeah.
That's kind of the style of the other Frank Zappa song in it, Shunga's Revenge, I think it's called. It's that album kind of sounds like that. And then there's his other stuff, which is more kind of comedy-ish.
Yeah, it's comedy music, but it's also like really good.
Yeah.
Like, there's one song called Why Does It Hurt When I Pee, where he's talking about how it hurts when he pees, but it's also like a really epic like rock ballad. It's genuinely really good.
Yeah.
And you kind of forget that he's talking about his pee burning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and then in the case of this song, the bits that if I've heard the full song a few times, and it's like you get that bit where it's like, you know, I've been in you, you've been in me, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then like the song gets to a point where it kind of stops being that kind of sensual kind of thing, where there's still kind of a hint of, there's still like a comedic tone to it because of how his voice kind of is. It's very exaggerated, and then it kind of gets a bit rocky, and the song kind of loses me at that point.
Yeah,
that's not played in the film, and I think for good reason.
Yeah,
because I feel like it just gets too like, I don't know, the joke kind of gets strung a bit too far, and it's, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I find it really interesting that specifically we get 2 Frank Zappa songs specifically, and usually that's not the case. Usually it's a bunch of different artists that are very different, whereas in this it's very tight.
Yeah.
In its music choices, it's not there, and there's not as much as usual.
Yeah.
It really just shows up in very opportune moments.
Yeah, and I think also the moments where the music does show up is kind of like symbolic, because Leslie Chung's character is introduced with that one of the Frank Zappa songs.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is just me kind of making connections where they aren't there, but I feel like the points where that song is played again is either something to do with Leslie Chung's character, or it's a moment where Tony Leung's character is kind of like, I guess, thinking about them. You know, I feel like it is almost used as their theme song.
Because I was reading up a bit on it. This is like the first episode where we've actually done research.
Yeah, there was usually, I don't know if we've explained this before, usually when we record this, we have just finished watching the 2 films back to back, and then we pretty much instantly hit record on the camera.
And we talk about them in the order that we watch them.
Yeah. In the case of this episode, we watched the 2 films yesterday. I had to go off.
Yeah.
So we didn't record it yesterday. And now we're recording it today, a day later. So we both have little bits of knowledge that we wouldn't have had otherwise. But I don't know if we'll be doing this again. Maybe if needs be.
Yeah. So from what I read in basically Wong Kar-wai's own kind of words, it's the song like sonically represents their 2 kind of energies,
right.
and I got a lot of this when it was on, because there is kind of a strange dissonance in terms of like, not musical dissonance necessarily, but a dissonance in terms of the styles and the kind of paradox where you get the song kind of starts with some very like sweet, or the usage in the film starts with some like quite harsh bluesy guitar, and underneath it you kind of have some more languid bass tones, and then it kind of lays off and it's more kind of romantic, and then it kind of comes back in with the blues thing. I never thought about that. Yeah, so what I got when I was watching it was it kind of represents how their relationship is, where it's very unruly and harsh and abrasive at times, but it does have that little undercurrent of like sweetness and moments of that. But from what I read, it is intended as their theme. It represents both of them, not in the way where I'm saying it represents how their relationship is. It's like the harsh bit and the very over the top, abrasive kind of stuff is more representative of Po Wing and his like kind of out there somewhat erratic behavior and all that kind of stuff. And then the underlying bit is more representative of Lai's loneliness and melancholy throughout the film. So yeah, just a very, as usual with Wong Kar-wai, just such a nuanced way of using music that most people aren't on that level.
So yeah, the last thing we were talking about was the bit where the two are reintroduced to each other.
Yeah, and so what we really get here is them existing in the same area, not because they want to, but because they're just kind of stuck in Argentina because they don't have any money. So they just have to kind of get by. And Lai is basically the perspective character of the film. When we mainly just follow him. We see what he sees mostly, except for a few bits, but the film is from his perspective. And his life is quite mundane. It's getting very familiar with this one street corner of him standing outside the tango bar and just seeing Po Wing with other men, getting into taxis, coming out, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's an observer on the outside of things. And so gradually they kind of start interacting again.
Yeah.
There's a bit where Po Wing shows up and he's been beaten up.
Yeah.
Because of a watch that he gives Lai.
Yeah.
And so very gradually, it's kind of hard to go beat by beat because of just how kind of subtle and subliminal a lot of the character developments are. But they end up living in the same apartment again, starting over.
Yeah.
And once they start over, colour returns.
Yes.
To the
whole first section of this film where they are either just about to separate or are separated, it is in black and white, and once they are back together, the film goes into colour. Yeah.
And so what we get, because I don't want to just go beat for beat, so I'm just going to say broad strokes, most of this film is them in the apartment together. Yeah. We can talk about some specific scenes and bits as we want to, but most of the film, it's in this apartment. Lai is at work. He changes his job, works in a kitchen, that kind of thing. And with how much of the film is just them interacting in the apartment, this film really challenged me in a way that I was not quite expecting, because I was like, yeah, I've seen Fallen Angels, I've seen Chungking Express, I know what Wong Kar-wai is like. He gets quite avant-garde and gets quite small details, just filming at like the speed of life, that kind of thing. I wasn't expecting just how subtle everything is in this film. It's not like with Fallen Angels and Chungking Express. I can be like, oh, but Chungking Express is like this deep longing and loneliness, and you know the lights of the street and being alone in your room, but having this person that you don't really know how you feel about them, but you're gonna kind of latch onto them because you feel like there's something there.
Yeah. Or
Fallen Angels is this like illicit, obsessive feeling of love or lust or both or neither or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like I can latch on to stuff that happens and be like, oh, this is about this thing, or this is about this. This means this symbolically. With Happy Together, I couldn't do it. I could not do it for most of this film. It's so just slow, but it's because it's real life.
Yeah.
It's real life in the way we pretend it is in film, but it's not. It's just, or we try to pretend it is. It's not like we try to pretend it is in film. It's how it actually is.
Yeah. And I think Wong Kar-wai has an amazing just talent of capturing real life, real people, real emotions in film so perfectly that you almost feel like you are watching real people at certain points. Like, it feels real. They don't feel like movie characters. They feel like they could be real people. You know?
Yeah, because they don't express themselves like movie characters.
Yeah.
They don't have bits where there's an obvious bit of dramatic irony or whatever, and there's this quippy, snappy lines or anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just them in a room, and most moments of two people in a room is when they're there together that long. You could pick out the most exciting moments and all this kind of stuff, but that wouldn't really represent what it's like being in a room with somebody for that length of time. It's lazing around, cooking food, getting sick, like, and then you get brief moments of stuff, but most of it's just sitting around. Maybe sometimes you get on each other's nerves, but like, it's real.
Yeah.
That's, if, regardless of whether you're romantically involved with somebody, like, if you've lived with someone long enough, you understand a lot of what's going on in this film.
Yeah.
Even just the room itself. I've never been in Argentina. I've never been in Hong Kong, but like, the relationship they have with that room, it's like, when you live somewhere, and like when I've lived away from home, like, you just get a certain familiarity with a place.
Yeah.
And even when it's quite temperature wise, it's not quite comfortable, or there's some stains on the wall, and it's just like, it's kind of a bit mashed together, but there is a warmth to having people there.
Yeah.
That you're familiar with, and that's just so captured there, even though so much of this is them arguing with each other, and Lai makes a lot of threats of violence, which is troubling, and it's like, uncomfortable, because he's the main guy, but like, that's just how he talks, and we don't get how he talks. We don't understand why. We don't really understand the why of a lot of these things, but I think the film is so much better for it, because, and that's part of why it's so challenging. Like, we're not able to look at Lai's anger or Po Wing's like promiscuity or any of that stuff and be like, oh, it's because of this.
Yeah.
It's because of this experience they've had in the past. We just get this vertical slice of this period of their lives, and how they interact with each other, and we're just left with it, and it's like, you figure it out, you decide. It's like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's very good. I feel like the next thing that really happens after a lot of the two interacting in the apartment is they do end up separating again. I think it kind of just boils over to a point where they're like, I don't like you, I hate you, I never want to see you again.
Yeah.
And they separate, and Lai is just like working, trying to get money. Like that is the one goal. He doesn't really care about anything else. But he does become quite good friends with one of his co-workers.
Yeah.
Who is Taiwanese.
Mm.
And I guess like that's like how they connect.
Mm.
But I mean that could almost also come into the whole thing of like the political side about Hong Kong. I mean like Taiwan is like that's like isn't it's like in China geographically, but it's also like is it a state?
It's an island off the coast of China.
Yeah.
That basically to give a brief history of the founding of Taiwan.
Yeah.
There was a revolution, civil war in China.
Yeah.
Where there was the Republic of China, and then there was the People's Republic of China, or the Red Army, which was the Communist Party,
right?
Who are in charge of mainland China now. China was kind of run by warlords. It was kind of run by some not great people. Sterling analysis right here, but we're just getting the broad strokes.
Yeah.
Basically, after the Civil War, the Red Army pushed the Republic of China, the capitalist, liberal, whatever, down south, down through the country until they were just in Taiwan, and they just left them. I don't know if there were battles in Taiwan. I don't know how it went there, but the way the war ended up, the communists had control over what was China then, and is China now, and the Republic of China had control over Taiwan. And so what that results in now is the People's Republic of China feel that they are the rightful administrators of Taiwan. They believe that is China. The people in Taiwan think what is China now, or at least excluding like a few extra bits that became China. I think like Xinjiang is like quite a recent addition to China. If like
right,
but whatever. They think that they are the rightful administrators of China.
Right.
So what results now is a very, very complicated political situation.
Yeah. Where
before, if you had, this is still mostly the case, if you had a Taiwanese embassy in your country, it was like this for a good while. You did not have a Chinese embassy.
Right.
You had a Taiwanese embassy that saw itself as the Chinese embassy, and then you had the communist state, China, which was like, I'm sorry, you're wrong. That is not China. That is us.
Yeah.
We own that. So you're not allowed to have a Chinese embassy. And that, over the course, there was some, with the leader Deng Xiaoping, which I'm just realizing now that I'm explaining this, is actually mentioned in Happy Together.
Ah. Oh yeah, yeah.
When it says that he died.
Yeah.
Basically, Deng Xiaoping was the leader of China, who basically, I don't know if he was the first one after Mao, but he was definitely, he was after Mao anyway.
Yeah.
And his whole deal was he started opening China up to the US especially. You know in Forrest Gump, where he plays ping pong.
Yeah.
Those were actual like tournaments that were organized by Deng and Nixon, I think.
Right.
Was in power at the time. I think it was Nixon. If not, Jimmy Carter. they were basically just done so that they could actually, because China was such a big economic superpower that they had to they were like, okay, well, we can't not have a relationship with China. You good?
Yeah.
They were basically like, so we can't not have a relationship with China, so we basically need to like kind of sort this out.
Yeah.
And so now it's very complicated, where there is still a very strong relationship between Taiwan and America because of historically it's that is the Taiwanese state is like China, America's like in to Asia, and they make a lot of computer chips. So I understand the history of why Taiwan and China are like they are, but in terms of a lot of the nuances of what that meant in that moment in 1997, between two people living abroad in Argentina, one of them's from Taiwan, one of them's from Hong Kong. I can't really go too deeply into that other than kind of extrapolating from what I already know about the situation. But
yeah, I mean, the point I was really making is more just they're both like Chinese states or places which have political turmoil, which is arguing whether or not they are Chinese or where they belong.
They're Chinese with an asterisk.
Yeah. And I think it's just, I think it was a very conscious decision to have this movie, which is sort of about the handover in Hong Kong, to include a bit where he is speaking with someone from Taiwan, and also he is briefly in Taiwan. I just think it's a little detail that maybe we don't understand it, because like other films, I think every episode so far we've had an Asian film that we don't understand.
Yes,
something.
we have.
But yet again, I just think we don't understand it because we don't know the political ins and outs, and it's something I'd like to learn about. It seems very interesting.
Yeah, the only reason I know that whole thing about the history of Taiwan is because when I was in college in first year, I did a bit of history, and I had like 2 lectures about, because the module I was doing was like very general about specifically like communist China. That was delivered by a lecturer who like is Chinese, and like his family, I can't remember exactly, but I know his family, I don't know. Anyway, I think his family were like in the mainland and would have been the families who would have like ended up in Taiwan. And so he kind of had a personal relationship with it, and very valuable. I remember those lectures very well. So that's basically what I'm able to talk about.
Very interesting.
I've got like, it's a surface level knowledge. But I think regardless of your knowledge, watch more Asian films and films from other continents, because
I think we've said that in every episode.
I think we have said that in every episode, but like, I think even in a podcast setting like this, don't be afraid to not know everything. Because
the thing is, if you watch a movie and you don't understand it all in the first go, you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to know everything and understand everything about a movie the first time you watch it. So like, I think don't be afraid to rewatch movies. And learn something more and then rewatch it and see what you find.
Because like, one of the most exciting things about foreign cinema is how different it can be. like, and how it changes, because cinema is fundamentally an art that's about seeing and showing things. It does get you to look at locations in ways that you couldn't. Like when he returns home to Taiwan, or not home to Taiwan, but home to China, and he's in Taiwan. Like, even though I've never been, I think you know where I'm going with this. Even though I've never been outside of Europe, even though I plan on I plan on leaving Europe at some point, but for now I've only been inside Europe. When he's there, I'm like, oh, that is what home feels like.
Yeah, it has, like, I feel like for the whole movie when they're in Argentina, it never feels quite comfortable.
Yeah,
they never feel quite at home. But as soon as you see him walking down the street through the market, and there's all the people and all the lights, it's so comfortable and you feel at home, even though I know nothing about that.
Yeah, I've only been to China through a TV screen, which is not being to China. Like, because even when I'd watch like Fallen Angels and Chungking Express, it was always like, oh, I'm looking at a foreign country. I'm looking at a different culture, and I'm seeing, I'm trying to inhabit a different culture and see what it's like. But in that scene, I don't feel like I'm doing that. I feel like I feel like I'm experiencing a really true expression of what home is.
Yeah.
And you see that in Tony Leung's performance. It's so, he's just so at ease there.
Yeah.
In a way that he's not at any other point of the film. Like, just, that is what film is about.
Yeah.
It is about seeing places in ways that you could not have possibly seen them otherwise. You know?
Yeah. This is really a superb film.
Yeah.
So good. And I think it is one that, when it comes to conversations about Wong Kar-wai, it's not one that's spoken about a lot.
Yeah.
I think it is usually either Chungking Express or In the Mood for Love, and
sometimes Fallen Angels.
Sometimes Fallen Angels, as of late anyway, because I think more people are copping on that is an amazing film.
Yeah, I think TikTok has kind of changed.
Yeah.
Changed that. I think Fallen Angels is, I don't know if it still is, but I know at one point people were reposting Fallen Angels on TikTok.
Yeah, it definitely had a little bit of a resurgence because of, I think it is also because it's the edgy one.
That is true. Yeah.
Which, you know, that's kind of why I like it, but,
yeah.
You know, I think more people do need to watch Happy Together because it is really, really good.
Yeah, and it surprised me as someone who's watched Wong Kar-wai and loved Wong Kar-wai before, because of just how, like, different it is. It's boring in a way that is not an insult whatsoever.
Yeah.
And
I feel like it's almost on purpose, because it's like,
yeah.
The events of the movie is we are following this guy who is in a terrible relationship and is just working every day to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's boring as hell, but you feel it on a different level to how Underworld is boring, where there's nothing going on, you don't care, so you're just waiting for it to be over. But with Happy Together, it's like, it's boring on purpose. You're supposed to be kind of bored by it.
Yeah.
But that's the point, you know?
Yeah, it's boring in the way, like, ambient music can be boring. Like, Brian Eno's, like, first album, well, not first album, but, like, Music for Airports, where it's very, like, repetitive and gets you in a routine. But if you just focus on it, it just puts the brain at this, like, where you're just hearing this one piano thing over and over and over again, and you're given so little stimulus that you just get so intimately familiar with that one piano motif that it's boring, but in a way that feels nice.
It's a comfortable boring.
Yeah, which is like, there's a really good YouTube video by a YouTuber called Hazel, called the Anime Countryside.
I have not watched that one yet. I don't know why.
That is it's a contender for best one, honestly. And
Okay,
I one of my favorite YouTubers.
Yeah,
but
shout out Hazel.
yeah,
I'll put a link in the description.
yeah. In that video, she uses the term boring, non-pejorative, which is basically what I'm just saying,
Yeah.
where it's calling something boring, but as a compliment, and exploring boredom as a state of being and as an aesthetic mode instead of something to be avoided.
Yeah.
And I think this film is like one of the best examples of how that can be done and still tell a very, very meaningful, beautiful story.
Yeah. There's one bit in this film where I think it's very soon after, or maybe just before the two separate for the second time, like near the middle of the film, where it kind of randomly cuts to a shot of Tony Leung's character sitting on like the edge of a boat, and it kind of just looks like he's floating through the water.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of laying there thinking about everything. And it's kind of abstract because there's no reason for him to be there.
Yeah.
And it's never really explained what's going on.
Yeah.
But you kind of get it on like an emotional level.
Yeah.
That he is kind of just like floating around.
Yeah.
Thinking about everything. It's like, it doesn't make sense in real life.
Yeah.
But I almost think of it kind of like a dream sequence. Where you're looking at his mental state very translated into literally just him floating over the water thinking things over.
Yeah, and like there is the same dream-like quality to this as in all of the Wong Kar-wai that I've seen, but this is the strongest point where I've seen that dreamlike aesthetic be transplanted onto showing reality, where there's really no difference between the two. It's just like it's feeling those heightened emotions, but through the least heightened action in it, like any movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Of just like where a significant moment in the film is just one man cleaning an apartment.
Yeah.
Which, that's another thing about Wong Kar-wai. I didn't even cop onto this, but every film we've seen has someone cleaning someone else's apartment as a romantic gesture.
That is true.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love reoccurring things between films.
Yeah, because it's like, with that sense of rearranging and moving around the apartment and cleaning the apartment, I think where we get what Wong Kar-wai's overall kind of portrait of what love is, it's in those moments. It's the idea of spending time with somebody out of choice and changing their lives whether you want them to or not, which especially happens in the case of not wanting to. That is what it is. It's like you enter somebody's life, or somebody enters your life, and they change you. And it's not a choice. You don't choose, like, oh, I want this person to change me in this way or whatever. And sometimes you're like, you're not like, oh, I'm gonna change this person by saying this, but you just put two people together, or not even two people, any amount of people together in an intimate enough setting, and changes will happen. And that's kind of the essence of what happens in this film. It's just a lot of that change is very gradual and very stark and very sad.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what Wong Kar-wai is about. It's it's people doing things without realizing it, but their desires are kind of expressed through that, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah. I really like the bit where it's Tony Leung and the guy, his co-worker from the kitchen, and they go to the like bar, and they're just kind of drinking, and his co-worker brings up the fact that he starts talking about how he's leaving. He's gonna go further down south to find a lighthouse or something.
Yeah.
And he says, is it him that said? No, it's, yeah. He brings up the fact that he's going down to the lighthouse. And then Tony Leung says that people go there when their heart is broken and they want to leave all their sadness down there and leave it for good, and, you know, be better off leaving. And there's a really good moment where his co-worker says, okay, record into this tape and tell me all of your sadness, and I can bring it there and leave it there for you, seeing as you can't go with me. And he gives Tony Leung the tape recorder, and he's like, go on, speak into it. And Tony Leung doesn't say anything, so he's like, alright, I'll leave you to it, I'm just gonna get up and dance, you know, do whatever. So the co-worker stands up and he goes to the dance floor, he starts dancing, and we cut back almost from his perspective of looking back at the table from the dance floor. It's Tony Leung sitting there with the tape recorder over his face, like trying to hide his face, but he is crying so hard and so, like, sadly.
Unlike any actor I've ever seen cry.
Like,
this isn't like... This isn't movie crying.
No.
This is like... You know, how...
It's like real, ugly, like purely sad, depressive crying.
Yeah, and there's another crying scene that I've seen that I would put on the level of like, oh, this is real cry.
Yeah.
You haven't seen it, but the Normal People.
Right.
The show Normal People. There's a scene in that where Paul Mescal is in a therapist's office, and it's not like this where it's like in the background and it's just like, oh, you know, you don't hear it, but it's you know, just sobbing. In Normal People, it's like overwhelming, like, fuck, I can't believe, like, this is just happening and I'm just bawling and trying to speak. We should watch Normal People.
Yeah, probably.
that could be a good one, because that show is amazing.
Yeah, I definitely heard good things about it.
But
yeah, this scene, it's like he's just sitting there, and I think I feel like it's like he's sitting there and he's like, okay, I'm gonna speak all of my sadness into this tape recorder, and I feel like at that point it is too much to bear to let it all out, or just to think of it all at the one time, that he physically cannot speak, and he is just left crying his eyes out, and it is so sad to watch. And I think, so to skip forward a little bit to just get to the little conclusion to that encounter. So his co-worker does make it to the lighthouse, and he's there and he's talking about how he feels like he's finally kind of made it, and he feels ready to go home to Taiwan at that point. And he gets out the like tape recorder to listen back to what was recorded on the tape, but he can only hear him like crying into the tape, and there's nothing else on it, like that's it. And while it is kind of like, oh well, I guess he didn't speak all of this sadness into the tape, but at the same time I feel like the goal of bringing his sadness to this point, it almost does work.
Yeah.
Because this is like the end of the film, and at this point it's like, will I speak about the ending now? We can like go back.
Yeah, we will go back.
Yeah,
because there is more I want to talk about.
Yeah,
but, like...
so at this point, the two Tony Leung and Leslie Chung's character have completely separated, and Tony Leung, he has enough money to go home, but before he goes home to Hong Kong, he does visit the waterfall, and there's an amazing shot of him standing in this like observation deck, which is almost right in the center of the waterfall, and he is being like showered upon with like water,
just blasted
from the waterfall, but he's just kind of standing there within it, and he's looking up at it with like a facial expression again where he is like, I fucking done it. Like, I'm content, I'm happy, I've done it, I've finally made it to this fucking waterfall, and I'm coming out the other side a changed and better person. And it is such a beautiful ending. It's so good. But at the same time, it is also pretty sad, because while this co-worker, he has his happy ending, because his whole conflict is that he wants to travel the world because he feels like he doesn't want to go home. He doesn't really feel welcome. He doesn't like it. But once he makes it to the lighthouse, he's like, oh, I'm ready to go home now. Tony Leung finally feels happy. He feels like content. He's able to go home. So he goes home. But with Leslie Chung's character, it's like the last we see, they are like slumped over on a path, probably like drunk out of their mind. So we don't really know what happened to them.
Because when he leaves the film, which is earlier than you would think, there's a significant portion of the film where he's just gone. There's such a gaping chasm in every scene afterwards that's just like, and you get that feeling of he should be here, but he's not, and in some ways he shouldn't be here because he's like, they're bad for each other, but you still want them to be there, and it just captures that psychology of you understand why they stick around each other so long. It's because like
they feel like they need to be together.
They know each other so well that the idea of not being around each other is just...
And I think it is also the fact that they're kind of stuck together. Like, physically, they can't really leave each other. They're both stranded in the same, like, city. What are they gonna do? I mean, they might as well just stay together.
And like, it's so interesting when Tony Leung, when Lloyd takes the passport. That's such like a... you know?
Like, I feel like that is like, he's recognizing that Leslie Chung's character is like, okay, I think I'm gonna leave this person. So in a desperate attempt to just force them to stay, he takes their passport so they physically cannot leave. Like, they can't go anywhere without it. But like, I feel like beyond, like, at that point, it's like they never go back. Like, that is really the turning point where it's just leading up to them separating again.
I think there are a few more moments that I'd like to zone in on that are just some of my favorites. The scene early enough on where Lies is smoking outside of the bar, and Poing comes up and
he lights the cigarette.
Whoa. That's like the first scene in the movie, I think, where you just look at it and you're just like, oh my god, that's such a, just as an image, it's so understated, but it just is exactly what it says it is. It's a cigarette that is dying, but through kind of force, through kind of just the fact that they're next to each other, he gives him his light off of his own dying flame, and they just stand there for a bit.
I feel like with all of Wong Kar-wai's films, they are very real, and they feel very real, but at the same time they're always very poetic. Like one thing with Fallen Angels is like you kind of see things repeating themselves in very poetic ways that are kind of like, you know, character developments, and they end up facing either like maybe like the same person or a very similar thing happening, but it's kind of different the second time around. But this film is definitely very poetic, but in a realistic way. That it almost doesn't feel poetic in the moment, but when you look back on it, you can see those like moments. I think also it should be said, Tony Leung is not gay. He plays a very good gay man. He is convincingly gay in this movie. He also has his ear pierced, which I think was done for this movie. And he's very convincing gay.
Very method.
Very method.
I think there's like a Letterboxd review that's just like one line, and it's just talking about Tony Leung's earring. It's like, that
it is a good. It's like it's a tiny detail, but it's like
he fucking rocks that earring though.
He does.
Like, it's very good. And then another scene I wanted to talk about a little is on the poster. It's when they dance together. Like, I when I think of scenes in that movie that just have that emotional center where it's like it's just this flash of like overwhelming emotion, it's like that, and I'd say the waterfall scene of just like the line of I always thought that we'd see this together, which is just like
it's
heartbreaking.
Like, it's really sad that that's how it turned out, but you're also like, I think it's better that they didn't see it together. I think it's better that he's seeing it on his own. But that's almost a good thing, you know?
It's like it doesn't give you that Hollywood closure. Or filmic closure or narrative closure. It's just that's how it worked out. That's just how it happened. Which is like what life is like, and it's what this film is like. It's because to go back actually really early, I meant to bring this up, but just as I'm talking about how non-filmy this is in a lot of ways, non-heightened filmy, non-Hollywood filmy. When they start like arguing with each other really early on, and they get into like a really heated, and I can't remember if that one gets physical or not, but where Ping comes into the apartment and Lai's like shouting at him, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing here? Like, get the fuck out of here!" I was so happy that this film didn't do this, because in like every Hollywood film, you'd have them making out at the end of that scene. Where it's just like, oh, it's like they're angry at each other, but it's really because they want to have sex with each other. Oh my god, that is so genius. But it doesn't do that, because that's not...
Is that the bit where he throws the bottle at the wall?
I think so, yeah.
I love that bit because it does, and I love when movies do this, it's a frame within a frame, where we're seeing Tony Leung face like head on, but we're also seeing like Tony Leung is standing here, and Leslie Chung is on a bed here, and the camera's facing at Tony Leung, but behind him is a mirror so we can also see Leslie Chung the whole time. So we're seeing two sides of the room seamlessly through a mirror and down, which is just such a smart thing to do. But it's so simple. Like, oh, we need to be able to see both people on different sides of the room. Just put a mirror up.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. To go back to the tango scene, because
yes.
It's just like that moment really comes out of nowhere, and it just, like, you see them kind of dancing a little bit, but then in the context of their relationship up until that point, it's all like them just at each other.
Yeah.
And then you just have this, one of the most pure, beautiful, artistic expressions of love that can exist, which is just two people standing in a room just tangoing with each other, and it's like, it's so fleeting.
Yeah, but I think also it's like they are dancing together, but it does kind of just devolve into a sexual thing, where it's like they're trying to have a nice romantic relationship, but in the end it is just a sexual thing. They don't really love each other, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does feel like there's like a deep physical longing for each other that kind of carries them, but like there is something in them that just doesn't work as a pair. And how, just like with everything in the film, like every beautiful moment, or every like everything that you would look at and be like, oh, this is the bit where this romantic thing happens or whatever, it's always like unconsummated. It's always, you're always left hanging with every emotion. You're never, nothing resolves in a nice way, or in a way where you're like, oh, at least I can take comfort in this. It's like, it's always like a but you know, I think the last thing I want to bring up anyway is the loneliness of this film, and how it is kind of different to a lot of the loneliness in the other Wong Kar-wai films, where because of them being in Hong Kong, there's the kind of conversation it's having with the setting is it's exploring loneliness in a place where you could not go anywhere without seeing at least one person. Like how loneliness can kind of exist out when you're among people, when you're among so many people. But this is like something else, like, because there's just this constant unease at not being home, and also the way the weather is, where there's like just a thick heat over everything that you feel. Everybody's a bit sweaty constantly. It's just like it's not just loneliness, it's being out of place. It's not even being able to be lonely at home. You know, you're in somewhere you don't know, in a country that you're not really aware of. Even like with his friend, the person that he has the most outwardly positive relationship with, which is Chang, his co-worker, he still can't really, and never really fully opens up to him. They enter each other's lives and they leave each other's lives, and that's all we see of them. Like, he never tells him that he's gay. He never like when there's that bit where he's like, oh, what kind of voice do you like in a woman? And he's like,
yeah,
I don't really care. And it's such a like, this is his best friend in this movie. Like, obviously there's Po Wing or whatever, but like, in terms of like a friend he has that doesn't argue with him,
yeah,
that gets him. It's like he can't even bring himself to say
yeah,
to just say that in that context. Like, you just be like, yeah, I'm gay. Sorry, I'm not into women or anything like that. It's like he doesn't like, and when they leave each other, and you get him working at the slaughterhouse, and you just get shots of him driving around, which is some of the most lonely shots ever.
Yeah.
Like, and the way the streets are, we just get these big wide empty streets with like nobody in them.
yeah.
It's as far from Hong Kong as you could get.
Yeah. I think also, just to briefly go back, the scene where it's his co-worker leaving and saying goodbye.
Yeah.
I really love the bit where they like hug just before
Yeah.
he leaves, because it's like, I feel like it's just like, I don't even know how to say it. It's just such a good bit.
Yeah.
Like,
It's so pure.
I feel like, even if he has never fully revealed who he is, I feel like he kind of understands in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, he kind of gets it
Yeah.
a little bit. It's a really good scene.
Yeah. But yeah, when to go back, just
Yes.
as we as he kind of finds himself drifting more and more without anybody, and to the point where he's like in a like porno theater,
Yeah.
and it goes to the point of like quite illicit stuff. Like, it's at that point it goes beyond loneliness, and it's more like just abjection. He's just a complete outsider who's in a place that, like, he's Chinese in Argentina. He's on the other side of the world. He's a different race than everybody.
Yeah.
He's gay. Like, he has lost his only relationship with the only other person who is all of those things as well. His friend is gone. He's just driving around, and it's like, it just goes beyond lonely. It's just this hollow feeling of like, fuck. Like with something like Chungking Express or Fallen Angels, like I was saying, it's like they're very strong emotions that you can feel, but here it's just this, it's hollowness.
Yeah.
It's just this empty feeling of that place, and I almost forgot about it, but when he imagines Hong Kong upside down.
Yes. Yeah.
That is so moving.
Yeah.
And I can't even really put into words why.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like that is another thing that ties into the kind of theme of the whole handover thing.
Yeah.
Of like, I wonder what Hong Kong looks like upside down.
yeah.
Like, as in the place Hong Kong going through such a shift that it is almost like it's being turned upside down.
Yeah.
I feel like when I saw that shot again after knowing kind of more about the film and the history and what was going on at the time, I feel like it becomes a stronger moment.
Yeah.
For me anyway.
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't know, trying to escape that original context that he was born in, but all his problems are like with him and his relationship. It's like he tried to escape Hong Kong, but Hong Kong wasn't really the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also it's like, even when he's imagining home,
Yeah.
it's not right.
Yeah.
Like, it's upside down.
Yeah.
He's like that, I guess, that far gone from it that even in his memory, it's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing film.
Yeah, I think that's where we leave it.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about this film.
Yeah, this is gonna be a long fucking episode. Okay, how many waterfall lamps out of 5 are you gonna give it?
There can only be one thing. It's 5. It's 5. When you were describing your feelings on ratings earlier, I didn't say it because I didn't want to give away my rating. But on Letterboxd, I rated this 4.5.
Yeah.
And as I've been thinking about it, and especially as we've been talking about
Yeah.
it here, I've just been like, no, it's a 5 out of 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm also going 5. It's like, when it comes to Wong Kar-wai and you're rating his films, all of them are 5 out of 5. It's just ranking which are the best of the best.
Yeah.
Like, which is the most good of the ones that are all, like, perfect.
Yeah, like, of the ones I've seen, it's like, they're all about as good as a film can get.
Yeah.
It really just depends on what you personally connect with at that moment,
Yeah.
or what you connect with as a person. So I don't know which one my favourite is.
Yeah.
I think I need to see Fallen Angels again.
Yeah.
It might be Chungking Express, but I really love Fallen Angels, and it's
Yeah.
been a while, so I don't know. Maybe another episode, but
Maybe.
But yeah, I don't really see how I could give this anything other than 5 out of 5.
It's like, and it's only an hour and 30.
Oh, beautiful. Underworld could never.
Underworld could never. Yeah. They didn't even have gay vampires. So yeah, what's the message at the end of this, Emmett?
Sometimes films are shit.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't talk about them and get a lot out of them. But that also, and just because you can talk a lot about shit films, and get value out of that discussion, doesn't mean that they're worthless. Even though Underworld was really bad.
I think because you can have just as much discussion about a good film as you can a bad film.
Yeah.
And you can get almost like, not as much meaning, but you can get a lot from it.
Yeah, and I don't think any time with a film is really wasted time.
Yeah.
I get that our lesson today focused more on Underworld than the two films together, but I think understanding that sometimes films are bad, but sometimes they're really, really good is quite a simple message. But I think people need to watch more bad films to really understand why they like the good films they like, because I feel like after understanding why Underworld was shit, I feel like I like Resident Evil and Blade more.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually like, I'm actually able to put into words way better and way clearer why I like those, even though they are like campy, stupid fun.
Yeah.
Like, no, Resident Evil is way better than Underworld.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's that time again. Emmett, what is your movie for next week?
Okay.
Or whatever, next episode.
I was turning around a good few films in my mind.
Okay.
I think I had an idea, but I think I'm gonna save it.
Okay.
I am gonna go with A Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Ah,
Yes.
okay. Nice one.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Cool.
It might be my favourite one.
Right.
But I don't know. You can't really go wrong with the first three.
Yeah.
1 and 3. You will not need to have seen the first one to understand this one.
I have seen the first one.
Yeah, which is why I didn't feel bad picking it. If you have not seen the first one, it's really good. So I'd say do.
Yes.
But this is basically a standalone.
Right. I am gonna go with Heavy Metal, the anthology film.
Oh,
yes.
Cool.
Yeah, I was gonna watch it, and then I didn't, and I was like, fuck it, watch it on the podcast.
Okay, sick. Nice.
Because it's something I've been interested in
Yeah.
for ages, but you know, we like dodgy old animation, like Fritz the Cat.
Oh, we do. We've got to talk about some Ralph Bakshi on this.
Yes,
on
we
the-
definitely will watch something.
Yeah, I mean, I know which one I want to put.
Yeah,
Another time.
But yeah, heavy metal.
Heavy metal. I can't wait. I love how just unexpected, how surprised I always am by like every. I mean, we've only done 2 where we've actually like properly done this, but like, yeah, it is always very exciting.
Yes, I always look forward to, even like in between episodes, finding out what's next, because I feel like it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, can't wait for that. I would never have guessed that one.
Well, it should be a good episode. 2 fucked up films.
I'd say so.
Yeah. Well, nice. Okay.
Another one in the bag.